All right, everybody, welcome to the December seminar, which is actually overflow from the November seminar. So technically, this is the November seminar, but it's going to be very December. It's a very December seminar because it is the third anniversary of Theory Underground. We're 3 years old. If I had my soundboard set up like I used to, I'd click the celebrating sounds and clapping, and instead we can all just kind of do it in our heads. But um,
Woo!
yeah,
There you
or
go.
like Anne. Thank you. For some reason, these things matter to me. Uh, for some reason, the seasons matter to me. My family is full of people, including my wife now, who for whom the weather matters. You know, if it's a dark and overcast day, it matters. For me, I, that kind of rarely seems to have an obvious effect on my mood. Um, but if we're thinking about the mood of a month or of even the span of a few months, uh, in between seasons seems to be where I get a lot of energy. Uh, and there are different kinds of energy for sure. And so, I feel a riptide going towards the new year. Like, like and in a riptide scenario, let's say you are whitewater rafting and you hit a riptide and it's a really big bad one. Like you can drown and die, right? And I have, I think, drowned and died a few times, and I've been reborn. And I usually am reborn somewhere between January and April, right? And it's a very rough time of year, uh, in the sense that nothing that was planned the whole year actually seems to have worked out, right? Everything went totally different, and so um, there was this younger Dave who was very anti holidays. I think it was some kind of uh, dollar store punk leftism. It was like, I don't like all that. What's the point? Every day is Christmas if you love people and you give things to other people just all the time. And every day is Thanksgiving. And also if you looked at me back in the day, you would say every day is Halloween because I was obviously dressing up for that as well. You ever wonder what's wrong with the global the how do you say it, the global urban monoculture, with that style, with that fashion? Why do they all look that way is a thing we say now. um, just remember that they don't have boundaries for things, and so all of the holidays are just every day for them, and then you'll go, oh, okay, well, it makes sense. They don't have boundaries, they don't believe in structure, so that makes sense. And
Dave,
I'm only part way.
Dave, your
Yeah.
sister just shared a picture of you in the family chat when you were younger. Do I have your permission to share it in this group? It's not a bad picture, but it like
Yeah, sure.
shows
Sure,
your
yeah.
the vibe a little bit. Cool, cool.
Oh, really? Is it like a is it emo Dave?
Maybe a little
I'll
more
put it.
punk, Dave. I
Okay.
don't know how old you are,
Interesting.
but it's coming.
Oh my gosh. That version of me. Oh wow. Whoa. Yeah, I forgot all about this picture. That's crazy. Okay. Um, let's see. I don't want to have to share screens, but I also do want to make sure that what we reference on here is not left out. So I'll just go ahead and um say here, I'll just share it this way. There you go. There you go, people in the future watching from Zoom. That's the picture that she's talking about. That's my mom in the background. That's the newer house. So I was in my 20s. I didn't live in this house, not really. Like uh this house was built after I'd moved out. Um yeah, look at young Dave. Anyway, all right, let's get back to it. So I thought you were going to show the picture where I had the septum piercing on my nose, or an eyeliner or something like that from when I was like 18. But anyway, I'm talking about Halloween being all year long. I'm talking about Thanksgiving being all year long. I'm talking about Christmas being all year long. I'm talking about a kind of uh, punk dollar store leftism. And the reason that I wanted to sort of frame what's coming up in this talk with the idea of the seasonal riptide, and the reason that even relates to holidays is because, and maybe you've already guessed this, at the level of Befindlichkeit, the human being, and really the human population, it goes through mood transformations. And those might be somewhat related to the weather. It might be because it's COVID. It might be because something's going on. It could be a Great Depression, a world war, someone won the Super Bowl. I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons that human beings participate in group moods. And the weather is a reliable indicator that things are changing. And you'll notice that, Christmas is not the only holiday for kind of structuring human time in such a way so as to deliberately routinize the getting together with loved ones and setting aside time to be warm together. Like, I don't think it's chance that human beings like need this, this commonality, this shared warmth planned into the calendar to prepare us for the dark times ahead. If by the time December 25th comes around, we're already going through some dark times, but it gets colder after. If you live somewhere with seasons, I know Alex Sappington's listening to this from a place that doesn't really have seasons, not real ones. Phoenix is fake seasons, fake news. That's why there's like 3.5 to 5 million people living between Phoenix and its metro. Like, that's it's crazy.
It's a blessing when it rains.
Yeah. It's probably 70 degrees right now, and you could go swim in that swimming pool we were hanging out at when I was there. So I don't know if Christmas matters in Phoenix the way that it does somewhere where it's going to be dead cold. But like I was saying, weather doesn't affect me the way it does other people, but there is something about the socio-symbolic structure of a year that matters to me. And that riptide effect that I'm talking about, I feel like, oh, we're coming up on change. There's a whole new year ahead. And that part of me that used to not take it seriously, that little dollar store leftist or whatever, like that was like, oh, well, everyone seems to save all of their warmth for one time in the year. Why can't they do this all the time? Right? Same with like having fun and dressing up, looking non-normie, and it's this larger view now where I think about how we develop not just coping mechanisms, but also how at the level of organizing society, there needs to be deliberate counters to certain things like the cold. So we'll plan a warm holiday. There also need to be deliberate pressure release valves for things that build up. And so those sort of Dionysian holidays, which Halloween would be a perfect example of. But really, if you think about it, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, they're all part of the same thing, which is binging together with loved ones in different ways with different emphases on different things. But you are binging in all three of those cases. It is a Dionysian binge fest with loved ones. The first one is like, let's get crazy and make fun of or have fun with that which is scary as you go into the cold, dark, grim, dark winter. Then let's be grateful for the things that we've had this year and eat a lot of food to remind the biological organisms that we are, or that we inhabit, either way, that we'll do okay. We're going to be fine. You know, there's no better way to do that than eating a turkey with some stuffing, right? And then Christmas, where it's not just about, you know, overeating candy and having fun, and it's not just about being grateful. Now it's, if you're going to be completely secular about it, it's just about giving presents. But if you're going to be religious about it, well, then there is arguably no more important day than Jesus's birthday. The arguable day would be Easter, which is only arguably more important than the birthday because of sort of retroactivity. You know, first you have to be born to then sacrifice for others and die, right? So you know, which is more important, chicken or the egg, right? But then, of course, Easter is one of those interesting ones because it's ushering in spring, the time of newness. And so, yeah, what I'm thinking about here is cycles. And one thing I want to say about a cycle is that the cycle of the season, or the cycle of the year, or the riptide of the movement between years or seasons, we can expand that out and then talk about the cycle of a life, the life cycle, right? Turning 38 today is definitely a lot like entering the November of a life cycle. Now, it's not of your life. November of your life would be like you're turning 75 or 80 or something like that, right? But that would be the November of your life. But if we're thinking about, there are periods of life where you do different things, it is the coming towards the end of the 30s, beginning of the 40s. That itself is a riptide, right? So I'm thinking about this a lot because I'm turning 38, and Theory Underground is turning 30, basically. You know, we could say that it's turning 3 years old because technically it's 3 years old. But we all know there's such a thing as dog years. And I think that there's also such a thing as YouTube channel years. And there's such a thing as School of Philosophy and Theory years. And the YouTube channel years are not the same thing as the School of Philosophy and Theory years. And if Theory Underground is neither of those things, but participating in both of those things, also a publishing company and blah, 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 well, then in a sort of sense, there's going to be dog years for what we're doing. And it's not going to be strictly confined to any of the one kind of activity or platform utilized by Theory Underground. So that makes sense, right? Everyone's following so far. How old is Theory Underground in dog years? 21 years old, right? That's just a dog. A dog cannot process human time. It can process the seasons, but it can't process human time. The dog that Ann and I are so proud and happy every day to have in our lives, named Daisy, a puppy. She's like 7.5 to 8 months old right now. She's a mini golden doodle. She's precious. She's amazing. This is her first winter, right? A lot happens to a dog in a year. And that's why, in part, we talk about them having dog years. So then, yeah, everyone in the chat, go ahead and suggest what you think. How old do you think Theory Underground is in not dog years, but whatever years, whatever kind of special hybrid years it is that we're doing? Not YouTube channel, not philosophy and theory school, whatever it is, whatever hybrid thing it is that we are. How old are we now? But I'll say this, I'll say 3 years is very different from the first year very different from the second year, very different from the fourth year. And every one of those years so far has been a transformative occasion. Now, I'm about to turn this back over to you guys and ask you guys some questions about highlights from this year before I dive into some of the things that I'm setting up for here. I said to some of you before we started recording to think about a highlight that you might want to share. And so that'll be your opportunity to do that. But when I think of the highlights of the year, I think of a lot, man. And if I compare and contrast this year to the previous years, this was literally the best year, and it was also literally the worst year. It has quite literally been both. It was better and worse than any previous year. And so it's bittersweet in that sense. Because with that riptide that I felt going into 2025, I felt like everything I'd done and said on the internet for 7 years, I think it had been 7 years of saying stuff on the internet at that point, everything was coming down to this. Hashtag free Mikey was either going to happen or it wasn't going to happen. And I'm all in. I've been all in, but now I need everyone to be all in. And then we either do this and we see those significant improvements by the end of the year, or I'm going to probably switch gears because I'll probably be starting a family at that point. Like that was the idea. That was the conversation that I had with my closest associates at the time. That's a conversation I was having with my wife, Anne. And self-fulfilling prophecy later, yeah, it's true. We are starting a family. Anne is now in her second trimester. We made it out of, you want to talk about cycles, we made it out of one of the worst ones you can possibly be in the first trimester, especially for a ginger. It's it's no joke. So I was feeling that riptide effect that I always feel. And I was trying to harness it. Because what I used to do is kind of just cast about and do my own thing. And I used to, I would say like every year as I've gotten older and arguably more mature, we'll see. Every year as I approach the new year, like New Year's Eve, I think, oh shit, a whole year went by. And then I do some kind of assessment. And then I'm horrified because I didn't really do anything. And I'm like, well, I said I was going to go to the gym and like lose 50 pounds. And I said I was going to like rock climb every week. And I said I was going to learn guitar. And I was also supposed to read Das Kapital Volume 2. I got to do that before I could read Volume 3, right? And so, it's just like you end up like kind of just being like, oh my God. And I have found that the time between Christmas and New Year's is kind of depressing because it's like you're sort of itching to get going, but you're also like a little nerve-wracked. I don't know. And maybe this doesn't count for you all. You might be like my younger self who doesn't take the holiday seriously at all. You don't even feel anything. Nothing's really different for you, perhaps. Maybe it is for you how other people's moods being affected by the weather is for me, where it's like, I'm sorry about that. Or, oh, I'm very happy for you that you like it this way. Whatever. It doesn't really affect me. I could see it being that way for you, but no, for me, approaching New Year's is always like this kind of like wild time. What's the plan? I'm asking myself, what's the plan? We got to have a plan, guys. And as I got more mature, I started like, if anything, thinking ahead a little bit further. So it's like, whereas at the age of 22, I was having this crisis as I approached New Year's Eve, all of a sudden I'm 23 and I'm aware of this crisis like 30 minutes earlier. And then I'm 24 and I'm aware of it a day earlier. Then I'm 25 and I'm aware of it 2 days earlier. And then eventually I'm in my 30s and I'm like thinking ahead a few weeks. And now yeah, I'm thinking about it in November. And so last year was the first year that I was thinking about it in October, right? We had TUCon. It was epic. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people came together. There was a lot of hype. And I was like, I'm taking that hype and I'm putting it directly into thinking about what's going to happen in 2025. And that's what happened. And it was a lot of really great conversations that led to that. And some of those conversations, it got me really excited for this whole idea of like weaving the bass braid and sort of becoming the workers with earbuds version of the College de France. Of course, the College of France actually had big endowment money from the actual state of France. That helps. That would have, I mean, that kind of means you don't have to do all of the other stuff that I found myself doing. Um, Instead, you literally can just show up to the platform that they have provided for you. If you're Foucault or if you're Bourdieu or if you're, whoever, you just show up and give your lecture or continue your seminar. And it's open to the public and people come and they appreciate it because they're all intellectuals and they smoke gross looking cigars. It's France. It's the 1970s. It's a good time. And I was like, yes, we could do that. And I stand by it. I think it's a good idea, right? It's still a good idea. Benjamin and I were having a conversation about it not too long ago when he was here for the retreat. It's still a good idea, right? The problem is that it was single-handedly the most stressful thing I've ever tried to take on in my life. I was under a kind of pressure I've never experienced before, even though I've done crazy campaigns before. There were elements to it that were just totally new. And a lot of it required me holding myself back. I've never had to hold myself back as much as I did this year. I didn't have to hold back the way I did this year back in 2022 when I was setting up for Theory Underground or when it launched on this day 3 years ago. I didn't have to hold myself back. I was able to go literally full bore, all in a way that I'm not able to do that if I'm trying to bring other people on board. Trying to bring other people on board requires making yourself intelligible to other people on a regular basis. And the nice thing about 2022, when I was doing all the development of this, was that I didn't have to make myself intelligible to anyone except for Anne. And she was kind of just like, I don't know, Anne. I think you were just positive and supporting and like, yeah, this is going to be cool. It wasn't super complicated. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you might want to say as the wife of the whole thing, the mom of the whole thing. But what was, going into it, 2022, 2023, I was able to go in full bore and I didn't have to explain myself to people, right?
Yeah, I just could see that you had like a very strong vision and mission and at least a sense of vision, mission, purpose, and like this energy to just do it that like I wish I had about certain things. And so I just trusted you and like believed in and still believe in this as an endeavor and a way of life. And I'm just like super down always to do what needs to be done to make that possible because it benefits me too to be doing what you're doing in a million ways. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we'll often say in Mexico that I worked so hard, I passed out in front of her. My lips turned purple and I passed out in front of her. She blames that on me working too hard. Um, we'll never really know what happened. I don't know what happened, but I was working really hard around that time. And you can explain the Mexico
yeah,
saga really quick.
you basically
Why?
like, so because we moved to Mexico, we were kind of in a transition year of traveling. Our lease was up in the December. So we visited some friends in Europe and then we're like, let's live abroad because that's what you're supposed to do when you're young and don't have kids yet. partly just to have the experience, partly because I knew some Spanish, and partly to live a little bit cheaper so that Dave could just focus on Theory Underground without us having to work normal jobs. Um, and so, we rent a long-term kind of Airbnb, and Dave was just working every day, like no breaks, no vacations. So one night we're sitting at a restaurant together, eating tacos or something delicious and vegan. Um, and Dave just starts to like, oh, my head hurts. Oh, my head's never felt this way before. And then he just kind of like not like leaned up against the wall, just out. And then I was like, Dave, not funny. And then it was like, oh, you're not responding to me. And so you were probably out for 30 seconds or so. And I'm like calling over the staff in Spanish and, trying to. And then you came to, yeah, like your lips were blue, you were pale and flushed. And then you just kind of were like low energy for the next couple of weeks. But it was just a weird thing that, yeah, I blamed it on maybe too much coffee, too much work, but who knows?
I blamed it on a combination of marijuana and coffee because back then I thought that I'd discovered like a really cool way of balancing my day. It's like I can get a solid 8 hours of work done, smoke, have a whole second like wind, and then do another 8 hours. And so I could do 16 hours a day by just going like, yeah, half the day is coffee, half the day is like a little bit of weed. And it was seemingly working, but I think that there were penalties, and I was drinking a lot of coffee, like a couple pots. And I don't even feel anything from it, like they say it helps you focus when you have ADHD or whatever. And so it's like, yeah, for me, it's just a matter of focusing in the most distracting place, right? The most distracting place is the screen. And if it helps me focus and not get caught up in the attention economy, then cool. I can just kind of. Anyway, okay. Uh, there's a couple anecdotes for you all about Theory Underground. And I was bringing it all around to saying that, this was a really uh, hard year, but it was also the best year. So let's say some positive things, and then I'll dive into uh, the things I can tell you for sure about the new era and some things I'm excited about that are in development. But let's just share little things that we're grateful for, or that stand out occasions that maybe like for you other people didn't get to see it or experience it, or maybe it just doesn't affect other people the way it affected you. And yeah, let's just I've got time. I hope everyone has time. I want to hear from everybody.
I'll start by just saying that for me, getting out another anthology, almost two anthologies on the same day, but obviously the Charlie Kirk one got blocked, but like it's still a ready to go anthology. That's just exciting. Like personally, to be able to say, yeah, I can put together a book on Word and edit it and make it look nice and kind of do all that work, but also for Theory Underground to be able to say, yeah, we're 3 years old and we have three like major publications. Are they 100% perfect, beautifully edited? No, but like I'm proud of them. They're good looking books. They look good on a bookshelf. They look like a real book. You might find an error here or there, but some people take years and years to just get one book out. And that's something that, again, there's pros and cons to the way that we do it versus the standard publishing way. But to be able to say, yeah, we made it happen. And we made it happen with a quick turnaround time. And we were able to put pieces in like very last minute too. This is a really cool thing that I'm proud of Dave for making happen. I'm proud of Theory Underground having the kind of community that can rally around that. And I'm like proud of myself for saying, hey, I can make a nice book. So that's highlight for me.
They're beautiful books, and they read like books. They don't just look like it. They also are substantial. Like there's really cool stuff in there. I mean, what I published yesterday to the channel is probably the most off the wall, random, potentially crazy incoherent thing in volume 2, because it's the 11th Toe Speaks piece, which is, for people who don't read it, or haven't read it or encountered it, it's the one truth, the one way. It's the one holy book that was revealed to our friend Bauer in March of last year. And so it's actually crazy. Like, it's for his cult. But there's a few pieces in there that I have in there very deliberately to kind of create a certain kind of space within which people are able to say things that they would otherwise not be able to say things, or say things in a way that is different from how they would otherwise put those things, right? Alex's pieces like that. There's a few other theory fiction pieces that are kind of doing that. And yeah, it took me a few years to realize the positive side of theory fiction, thanks to the CCRU. I used to just hate it. I think even when Mikey was teaching that course, I kind of railed against it. I said that this is like art snob, druggy kid bullshit. I don't care about it. Whatever, dude. That was kind of my attitude, but it's grown on me for various reasons. And so it's actually a very important thing, because it allows you as a theorist to be able to do stuff that you could not otherwise do. And it is important to be able to do those things sometimes. So anyway, with that said, other people.
I will go. I, I am grateful for you, Dave, for supporting me with the Kirk piece. I really wanted to finish it when I got back from the trip, and I was like, oh, I only have like a week or 5 days to do it. And I really went to the grindstone and tried my best. And I thought I couldn't turn it in time. And so I kind of just gave up. And you're like, hey, man, what's up? What's going on with that? And I was like, oh, well, shoot. Somebody's waiting for me to do this. And so, just having that accountability really helped me push through and even work on a second piece. And it I don't know, I'm really proud for finishing those two. And it gets me to get up and read some further things to keep on working and refine my thought. And I also am very grateful for your hospitality, your amazing family, we had good conversations, good times, and for taking care of me, for being a goofball. Hit my knee. But yeah, I thank you, Dave. Thank you.
I got to learn that one of the hats that I wear now is a field medic. It was gnarly. I've never seen a wound like that. Like, that was very, like, I don't know if anyone saw the movie Babylon. It's about the golden age of Hollywood and kind of just how crazy it was, and people getting injured on the job, getting injured while making movies is like one of the things you see, besides them all having coke and orgies or whatever. And yeah, the injury is happening while like actually out there. It's like other people can go write theory fictions about that kind of stuff happening, but like, yeah, we actually did it. We'll try not to do it anymore. But there were real injuries. We're gonna have to like make people sign waivers in the future for sure. But thankfully, Alex didn't want to sue Theory Underground, so we're good. All right, Matthew Stanley.
Federico had his hand up first.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see it, but the screen cuts it off. There we go. Yes.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, no specific highlight. But in general, this year, I guess, I don't know, I started making connections and seeing how the things that we're studying sort of applied, to everyday life. And I started thinking, oh, is this gerrymandering within Legalite? But I cannot say it because no one would understand, of course. But things started clicking. Yeah. And joined some exegeticals, and it was great to just read things together and then think about it during the day and come back in the evening and discuss it. So that was great. And I've also, I don't know, I just, I also started thinking, I'm learning so many things, and it would be great if my future child also learned these things somehow. Like, is there a way to I don't know, are there any children's books or things like that, and how can I impart this knowledge onto the future generation? But I don't know.
I'm glad you brought up the question of bequeathing culture to your descendant. Like it's this morning I was actually looking for synonyms for the word or phrase pass on. And most of them don't see, like transmit is one of them. But none of them really seem to get at passing on both theory and practice, embodied habitus, as well as like culture itself. Like what's the right word for transmitting the canon itself? And it's like there are words like bequeath, and I'm like, well, that's not going to work. I can't go around using that word. It makes me sound crazy. No one uses that word. But that question itself, I like cultivate. I like cultivation. And so that's going to be one of the big quilting points when we come back to what I already have on the board here. Cultivation as the opposite of critique. Not polar opposite, not mutually exclusive opposite, but like dialectical. Anyway, Matthew.
I've got a lot of things to mention, but I'll try to be brief. The first I would say is it's been great to connect with Dave and Anne as real people and just get to know them rather than just people in a video or on a YouTube channel. Just great to meet them as individuals and cultivating a real relationship. That's been great. As well as getting to know the community more too. So the retreat was a fantastic experience, and feeling that I want to bring more people into the space, but not understanding how because it's so illegible. Like, how do I tell people what it is? That's like a problem to be worked on in the future. Another great thing has been Benjamin. I've really appreciated interacting with Benjamin's ideas, both learning from what he's saying, but also just his clear ideas have provided something substantial to interact with and refine my own thinking. So I've really appreciated that opportunity. I think it's allowed me to clarify my own thinking by interacting with something that's not so squishy. And I think, and then the last thing I would say is just feeling much more bought in with as the vision for TU has been refined. It's come to take on this both intergenerational component as well as regenerative cultivation component. The idea of canon and that kind of thing. It's not just like another theory tube project, but it's becoming a genuine learning community with a vision that is going to bring beautiful things in the world, and that's actually looking to build something that outlasts it. That's a vision that I've loved to see that gain clarity and blossom, and Theory Underground own that more, and I'm bought into it, and I really like it. So, thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Matthew. And I'm looking forward to seeing you for that farm internship.
Yeah, the whole family. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And Alex will be there. Also, he's doing the farm internship and the super secret project development for a whole month. So that's going to be awesome. I know it's going to be awesome because I've already gotten to work with him. All I know is you don't give him sharp objects, but besides that, like he has initiative, and so it's awesome. Ruiz.
All right. I do have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to keep it brief as well, but I'm going to probably have a hard time containing myself here. I had a great year. I started TU probably at the end of 2024, and basically like quickly burned out. And then Benjamin, I saw he started kind of getting involved at that time too. Um, and then you guys announced like the weave, and basically I thought it'd be a great idea to jump in, mostly because of Benjamin. So thanks, Benjamin, for kind of giving me that extra boost to overcome the burnout. Because usually when you burn out, you usually just go away from things. You don't really circle back to them. So I thought that was awesome. Um, but then obviously to build on the rest of the year, um, meeting you guys in Kansas, and I got to meet you guys as well as Lori and the rest of Morin Academy as well, and Mikey and Nance, and it was awesome to meet you guys out there for the book launch. It was a great event. Um, and then obviously fast forward to the other retreat, which was pretty fucking amazing. I'm not gonna lie. It was I don't come from a theory background. This is basically my first year of doing theory things. I came up as a jock. I was interested in philosophy later in life. Um, but it was just awesome to meet everybody and see how personal people were and all the conversations that people were having. And it was cool to see that it was like everybody was disagreeing, but so nicely, yet agreeing at the same time on certain things. But the conversations were just, you got to see like how many angles people were coming at this from. And it's pretty amazing. And then to finally get, which I didn't think I was going to end up doing it this year, but I ended up finally getting a piece into one of the anthologies. So that was cool. And Dave wasn't too pushy about it at all, really. He just kind of would, hey, don't you have like a piece you're working on or something? And he would just kind of casually check in. So I thought that was always pretty cool. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to work on that piece, even though he never really said anything directly about it. So, but it worked. That was cool. Um, and and before leaving the retreat conversation, the conversation I had with Kier was another big one, because it was kind of like what I thought was like a throwaway kind of question that I threw into a conversation she was having with you guys, and it just ended up being like a big thing, and we had like a huge conversation at the retreat, and she ended up talking about it at her talk at the retreat, which I think ended up in the anthology as well. So that was just insane for me to have experienced something like that, because it was like the online world turns into like the real life thing, like it was an actual moment. So I thought that was great. And then fast forward back into the now and reading the book, doing the narrations has been fun. Um, Started nice and strong, and then I did the 11th toe, and I'm pretty sure I lost my mind at one point reading that article. So, but it was great. It was awesome, and just the whole process of doing these narrations has been real fun, and also something else that I would have never thought was going to be something I would be doing at this point. So, it's been awesome. Everybody that I've met, I don't want to start listing off all the people from the retreat because I'm going to forget someone, and then I'm going to feel like an ass. But definitely everyone that I met out there was just awesome event. So to another great year.
I'm flipping the Prangus here because you just about lost your mind while reading the 11th toe speaks. So yes, praise Jangus and praise be Gord. That's you did a really good job reading a very difficult piece that is on the one side arguably incoherent a lot of the time, and then on the other side, as you said, just trying to get the rhythm of the thing. It definitely has its own flow, and that's because it was revealed. All right, Benjamin.
Yeah, I just want to express appreciation to all of you for coming to my yaps and hosting my yaps and making it possible for my yaps to take place. I am somebody who is not likely to organize a bunch of things on my own. I get caught up in my own work, and it has been great to have this audience and to write stuff with this audience a bit in mind. I think that doing Theory Underground not only resulted in me writing pieces like Timenergy for Descartes, or the idea of the monastery. But also it kind of, I think, caused me to get back on Substack and to write different kinds of pieces on Substack from those I would have written before, because Theory Underground demonstrated that there are some people who would read or would care about those kinds of things. And it was a kind of range of piece that I would not have written on my blog in the old days, but also you couldn't publish in an academic journal, that I was able to do. And it was in part because I knew about you guys and knew that you guys were out there, and that you would care, you'd read stuff, you'd look at stuff. So it's changed a little bit who I have in my mind when I think about writing something. And I whatever happens in the future and however much I am around or not around next year, I will be very grateful for that.
I think that kind of naturally brings up the question of who will be here and what is going on at TU in 2026. And right now, I'm in conversations that are going to span not this month, but the next basically 2 months. Because one of the things, going back to the theme of giving ourselves time, is not feeling the need to have the plan finished before the new year. Is part of breaking. Like, yeah, I take that shit too seriously, but also I don't need to. I can stop doing that, and yeah, I can still hype up those aspects of the next year that require no making myself intelligible to other people and just require me doing what I know I can do, like this philosophy of stewardship and household economics and the intro to theory courses. It's like, yeah, I know I can do that stuff, but the guest lectures and the guest courses or seminars is something that I look forward to announcing to you all, not this month, but after. And part of that is also just giving myself the time to do what this month is really about, which is writing that book that I promised I would write in 2020. So with that said, though, I'll say more about it in a bit, because it's kind of going to be the signing off point. I'll say something about that. And it does relate to the super secret project, and I'll say something about that as well. I mean, all of this, like mystery and giving myself more time than normal, and all of it does definitely relate to the super secret project. But I won't say anything about that just in this moment, because I'm still curious if anyone else here wants to say anything. Highlight from the year, or really just from the lifespan of TU. It doesn't have to be like this year.
I'd like to say something. I came across you and Studebaker via Acid Horizon. Kind of trying to get back into philosophy, and on Acid Horizon they had One Dime Tony on there, and so I started following his podcast, and then you came on with your time energy piece, and it really just struck me right on point, and it really kind of galvanized me a bit to kind of really go back through my notes, reworking some papers that I knew I wanted to go back to. So, like working on Logic of Sense with Deleuze, and then Friday by Tournier, and kind of coming back to some ideas and realizing just from different perspectives of where I am in my life now, and coming back to material as as something new and not stagnant, and kind of just fluctuating with the cycles of life. But yeah, it's been great. I listen to you all the time. I feel like you're in my head constantly, and I'm glad to be here. So I'm glad y'all exist.
It's nice to meet you back. Yeah, that's cool. That's crazy. You're reading the Logic of Sense. You already did stuff on the Logic of Sense, and then time
I
energy
did.
somehow catalyzed you to go back to it?
Well, it just kind of catalyzed me to figure out what the hell what I want to do. This year I've really gone hard at gardening and farming and saving seed, another two passions of mine, which is definitely working with my hands and having kind of an objectless existence, alongside really wanting to be more community engaged. And that was kind of an issue when I would go to some conferences when I was still in school, and just the lack of engagement with those that don't even understand they're in the system, and that there's just even a light of different thought. Um, and it feels like it's very contained, which makes you sometimes feel very smart and smarter than others, but that does not get you very far, because that's not the point. If you want to have um, a good moral existence and you want to exist around others, otherwise, go to an island, right? Be by yourself in an unpeopled world and see what happens, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of getting back in, kind of seeing my grooves. I'm 39, so see if I want to go to grad school. I don't know. I don't know if school's the thing or if I've always been kind of an autodidact in general. So it's just figuring out how to do that alongside work and life.
Nice. 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 It sounds like this philosophy of stewardship and household economics might be right up your alley, though, for sure.
Yeah, I
Because
think
did you see that? Did you see the syllabus with the practicum
I did.
options?
I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I've been
Nice.
debating signing on to anything really. Um, I was even thinking when Studebaker mentioned kind of a breakdown for, I don't remember what podcast this was on, but it was for if you take the academic rigorousness of timelines for papers while you're in college, broke that down to more doable projects where you're still able to pick up on a litany. I have notebooks of notebooks of notebooks of ideas and thoughts that were never completed or never seen through. And I'll probably die before I read all my books. And that's the saddest thing in the world. There's books on my shelves that are going to outlive me without me reading them. But
Hmm.
figuring out how to set a goal for myself, doable goals where I feel like I've really gone through and thought through theory and set with myself, set with my thoughts, come back to it where I can kind of even understand which ways I went in it and see where I even want to incorporate that at. I know all that is very vague because I'm
No,
not.
but it's the repetition aspect that I think you're getting at, like the deliberate return, and that's the hardest part because the churn just wants us to stay present and kind of just one step ahead of what's present, what's trending, and it's like unsexy to ever return to anything, to go back over anything.
I have no, I feel very differently than that. I love going back and rereading stuff. Um, because you never read it all and you picked out what you wanted to in that moment. Because I could go back and reread this and pick out something from a text, from Marx, from anything and make it go a different way, you know,
Mm.
if I had an agenda. But I'm not in school, and then I was looking into grad programs and I have two cats, and I don't know if they would like to move to Chicago. And I've got a big garden and a farm here, so I don't know. But I do want more structure. I want more as the close of the year, is approaching and thinking of the ideas that I wanted to really delve into, um, and just explore ways of thought, ways of being, and turning into something different, like
Mm.
the work itself turning into something else. But I don't know how I'm going to be able to.
Thanks.
Yeah.
No, I think you're really articulating something that both uh, Anne and I feel a lot, and that we've both been thinking about a lot. And so I pulled down green screen here with the poster for this course up, and you know, I had initially planned on this being a whole lecture about this course, but then I realized because I'm doing this on the birthday of Theory Underground as well as me, it's like, well, I can't just do like the thing that I planned initially, right? But I am weaving through the philosophy of stewardship and household economics or based adulting 101 because what I started with here, and we'll come back to people's highlights in a minute. But you know, I just want to kind of reemphasize the thrust of this lecture being one about cycles and giving oneself the time, which was not said yet, but it's in Waypoint in the introduction when I say that I'm giving myself 5 years to write the book that I'll write to a different audience. And in the meantime, during that 5 years, I'm going to be developing myself without feeling like I need to explain myself and be intelligible to either a super niche, specialized corner of the academic world, or on the other hand, the popular kind of publishing where I'm trying to be discernible to a 5-year-old. And so it's like, you know, I took the two masters of writing, the academic peer and the 5-year-old or the person on the bar stool peer. I took those two and I said, I'm going to bracket you guys and just talk to myself and kind of the immediate people who are already kind of getting it enough, you know? And it was a huge relief that helped me write Timenergy, first of all, which is kind of a blend of those two audiences anyway. But you know, it was a permission slip that I gave myself, and I'm happy I did it. But in particular, it was, you know, the combination of that introduction and something I said in chapter 7 or 8, where I said that I think it's like on the left and perpetual immaturity or something like that. And what I was taught, it's a very short chapter where I'm just saying that one of my issues with leftist spaces is this constant mantra of like, we don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have time. And how during my time on the education committee of a Democratic Socialists of America chapter in Boise, there was this mantra, and it was coming from people who were supposed to be responsible for the education, and they were taking this line that we don't have time for the education. And I was like, what are we supposed to do? And then they were like, you want to do this like a school. And I was like, it's the education component that I want to do like lectures on. I'm not saying that everything has to be a lecture, but I'm saying like education, there should be a space for it. They were against that. And you know, that was one sort of sobering realization back in 2019, after a few years of involvement with that movement. And I was like, wow, I'm not going to be able to become who I want to become, someone who has competent knowledge about these things, by staying with these people, because these people condescend towards anything like this. And I know that the only way to learn things is to teach things. You know, at that point, I had already been teaching at the university a little bit. So I already had the experience of the training in how to teach, or how not to, really, because I don't like their methods. But I had my experience enough to be like, there's something deeply rewarding about reading something when you know that you're ultimately planning on teaching a course about it. Like there's a completely different thing going on there. And it's actually one of the things that has not been made available to everybody else at Theory Underground. And that's part of what we're getting away from. We're moving towards a future wherein, as a participant in a course, you get to do a presentation. You might not do it. You don't have to do it. There are other options too, but that is one in particular that you will be welcome to do. And that was something that we almost did a couple of years ago. There's people like Matthew Stanley who were around a couple of years ago, and we were talking about doing a seminar thing. And, you know, this is back when I was trying to get everybody to do their own seminars, and it wasn't going to work out because of the scheduling conflicts. It was too complicated, and we were too small to have an audience for anyone and really pull that off. But going into the next year, it's very easy. And I now see the way. And the realization came from doing the Proto Agora event up on the hill here at the retreat, where Keir gave that wonderful talk. Matthew gave that wonderful talk. Everybody who gave talks up on that hill, Alex, you were able to say a lot in a small amount of time. Right. And so it's like, yeah, we can have this sort of Toastmasters for theory nerds and autists component at TU without it becoming the main thing, the only thing. It's just like one of the forms of development. And so if you look at the philosophy of stewardship and household economics syllabus, which was sent out, and I think a lot of you have access to it, but there's also a version of this, I think, on Substack. I don't know if it's nearly as comprehensive as this one, the one that has BYOP or BALO, right? But this is one of the sections. It's saying bring your own partner, and then if you're single, become a local organizer, right? Now, if you're like so busy with a career that you can't do the local organizing, that's one thing. But fact is a lot of people who are single just need to organize something locally, not to find somebody, because they probably won't be someone who comes out of that direct organizing, but just it's taking on a leadership role and getting out there that ultimately is like one of the ways of being productive in that single time. And I've got a variety of suggestions about organizing activities that I will mentor you in. But then the practicum is the next section. The practicum is one where you can develop a household budget, design blueprints for a garden or entire farm. We'll have a master gardener leading that workshop over the course of several months through a series of guest talks from my mom, who is a master gardener and crazy farmer who's developed the entire McKerracher family farm thing in the last like 7 years, you know, with her combined knowledge from the last 30 years. And she's really good at giving presentations, actually. You'll get to design blueprints for either your dream home or your first home. And I just think that like these are things that should be normal. It should be normal to sit down and draft a building that you want to build. That doesn't mean that you should do everything yourself and always build everything yourself. But also, like, you shouldn't be paying someone to just do it and you have like no input. Like you have no idea really how to like think about homes. Like when you go into a house, you should be able to think about the flow of the spaces and how it does or does not relate to the kind of space that you want to be able to inhabit, right? And so my dad, who is a master craftsman when it comes to farming, sorry, not farming, inventing and building, he has a lot of experience, not in industrial, commercial, or residential housing, but specifically personal housing. He has built 3 homes for himself and for his family. That is something that no one else can say. No one else that I know. No one else can say like, well, I built my first home on a shoestring budget using recycled wood from a dock that I had donated to me from somebody else at the church. We had to pull nails out of that wood and we built a shamble house. And then over the course of years, I added on to that house. And then eventually I built like a real house, and it was such a real house that I was able to sell it for enough money that I was then able to build my final house, my magnum opus house. So it's like he did all of that. And the skills that go into building a house are the same as the skills that go into building a home. The only real difference is doing it deliberately and with a sense for dwelling that you have cultivated as you think about place. And so we'll think about Heidegger in his piece on building, thinking, dwelling. We'll think about Wendell Berry and the unsettling of America. We'll think about what it means to decommodify housing, right? People who want the government to decommodify housing by just making it a guaranteed thing that they can take for granted. Well, yeah, sure. And that's probably important or whatever. I don't know. That's a political economic question. But at the level of your existential, what are you doing here on the earth? That's not the way to live. Maybe that's the way to get off the street, but that's not the way to live, right? The way to live is to build your own house or have other people build your house for you. But even then, you want to think about that. You want to be able to sit down and literally draft the plans with your significant other, with your life partner, with your family, whatever. And that's what I'm doing in 2026. I'm gonna you'll all get to see me, and obviously I'm a YouTuber, so there'll be probably like an actual video. Yeah, one sec. Well, there'll actually be a video where I draw it out with my dad, and then in the same video you'll see the time lapse, and you'll see it all come together, and then you'll see the house, and it's all coming together in 2026. And it's coming together as a part of this course. Yeah, Melissa.
I was just going to say all these sound amazing. I'm actually rereading The Question Concerning Technology by Heidegger and thinking of the final way where the end is not a goal, but a product with a particular boundness and the thing with a circumscribed domain, right? So it appears in itself, for itself, within a certain context. So it's like used for a context, but not in the market value. But anyway, yeah, that's like the ideal dream to me, to be able to work alongside the land and not use it for extraction, to be able to create using tools, which is what Homo faber does. We use to create, our hands are for that. And be able to do that alongside rigorous study. And I don't know if that's just how I've always been. Like I copied the dictionary when I was very young, just loved language, loved learning, loved exploring. So what I find of difficulty when these three things very much so matter, and add in the communal aspect of sharing and discussion, it is very hard to even be able to do the draft of that, and the timeline of that, because the skill required for all of those is very high. Not high, but it's going to take some dedication. Like my grandpa was a carpenter and he built the house we lived at. And that's what he did. He did that alongside farming, but he wasn't, well read. He knew a lot about animals and nature, but it's so hard to figure out how to get all this done when we are thinking of time and time energy. And when the good time is for your brain to be the most clear, to absorb, to think. And typically that's not when I'm anywhere near a book. Like when I get my good 3 hours of very focused energy, is usually probably 4 hours after I wake up, and I hit the zone where I know that I'll have a good 4 to 5 hours of very, very clear, very directed attention, absorption, and relay. And I'm never at home for that. I'll be struggling
You're at work.
I'll be at work listening to your podcast and just getting angry about things that I can't read, can't double check on. And then I get home and it's dark and there's shit to do. And then another day passes and then it's all of a sudden 2026. So it's hard. And you try to flip
Years over.
and you try to go with these cycles, right? Follow nature. put accelerationism and acceleration of the world and my own impetus alongside what's there in society and culture and facing me every day, it's really hard to figure out how to fit all this in.
Yeah, it is like the true subject matter of my last, 15 years of theory has always been kind of like what is the way that this relates to the worker with earbuds, which I was prior to college and which I became after college. And it's like, well, what is the connection? Like is there a way that this stuff can deeply and directly inform a deliberate life? And I'm going to wrap up kind of everything about this course for now. I'll still do like a first lecture on it where we really actually get into Xenophon, for instance. I did tell people read Xenophon before coming to this, and Alex Sappington said he read the first half of it, which is dope. But I hope everybody else, because you have a little bit more time, yeah, go ahead and do that. There'll be something that is meant to promote this course within the next month before January, probably. And so you'll get an email about that. Read Xenophon's Oikonomicus, and then we'll be able to dive in. But to wrap it up for now, and I don't know if you're handy right now because you're really excited about the practicum you're going to do. But I'll just say, some of the practicum stuff is very simple. It's just like design a household budget, a meal prep plan for an entire year. But these, if you actually make them presentable in print, can be published alongside the actual thesis that you might want to do, or alongside the actual essay, or the theory memoir, or the theory fiction thing. And so there's a variety of other options on there that relate to this. And so I kind of want to tie it all up by just saying this year-long seminar in building, cultivating, nurturing, and the philosophy of stewardship and home economics is a sort of way for me to bend the bow here. And what I mean by bend the bow is, and I'll just point it out on the whiteboard so I can erase it. Right here where it says deconstruction and critique without ... N3, without nurturing, nature, and natality. Deconstruction and critique without cultivation is suicidal ideation. It's the black pill without a foot in the world of things that can keep you from becoming harmful to yourself and others, or from spiraling, or from all kinds of stuff. And not everybody needs it. Some people have the supports that they need, but I feel personally responsible to some extent. I'm not going to push it too far, but to some extent for feeding people enough deconstruction and critique, usually in the form of political phenomenology and socioanalysis. But, just to speak loosely, deconstruction and critique without building and cultivation. And it's like we are, to some extent, who we tell ourselves that we are. We are, to some extent, the projections we put out on the world. We are, to some extent, very impacted by the stories we tell ourselves about things. And there are very bad things happening. But if you just obsessively focus on the bad, it can lead to all kinds of stuff. And I'm not going to get into details right now, but suffice it to say that the critical media theory seminar I did with Anne, and many of you have had access to that if you weren't present at the time. That was one of the first things that we did on a monthly basis. The critical media theory thing for 2 years and the critical doxology and time energy courses, both of these seminars were amazing. They were awesome. But I also think they poisoned some people's minds. I think that they became relatively toxic, actually, for some people. Different people are affected by different things. Fixating on critique can mess a person up. It can undermine your ability to still laugh and have fun and hang out with other people. And it can definitely lead to misanthropy. And so, I'm not saying anything about anybody here. I'm also not saying anything about anybody here. I think it's about all of us and about none of us. What are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that we are, to some extent, who we say we are. You know, I think that gets taken too far by the New Agers, by the law of attraction, by the manifest, yourself kind of stuff. But also, I'm not saying that we have to sit there and look in the mirror and recite affirmations. I'm saying that if all you do is feed yourself deconstruction and critique, it becomes really easy to center and get grounded upon those things that some people can take for granted because they have the systems in place just to have those things and take it for granted. Some people just have the supports, so they can just kind of bracket those supports and then obsessively focus on the things that are serious problems. But if your life is a serious problem and you lack the supports, and then you obsessively focus on the problems, and you lack this actual structure of support or life that you need in order to be a competent adult, then you actually probably need not a monthly critique seminar. You actually need a monthly construction and building, cultivating seminar. And so Anne did turn her camera on, which is, I think, consent for me to call on her. So yeah, what are you excited about to be kind of working on for the next couple of weeks here while I'm away?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to read economics and kind of start exploring some of the readings from the bibliography. But I'm excited about this course and all of this kind of giving me the opportunity to really think both theoretically and concretely, like realistically, about household maintenance, specifically like cleaning and organization, and keeping a well-running household without like a functional household that doesn't take over your entire life. Because I love my mom very dearly, but she was very like obsessive about cleaning, and the house had to look spotless all the time, which probably has whatever effects it's had on me that makes cleaning and keeping things clean and organized and putting away the laundry and doing these things that just need to happen makes it just feel like this impossible task because I have to do it perfectly. It has to be done. Like, it's a whole thing that as Dave and I are, thinking about, okay, well, we're bringing a baby into this house. We just are going to need our little apartment for the time being to be like functional because we're going to have a human to take care of. And so my practicum will be kind of thinking about and writing about coming up with like systems as opposed to schedules and how those two relate, because just in doing some base reading and kind of exploring the internet of like, okay, former messy people, what did you do to not be so messy and to make it all work? And a lot of people were saying systems, having household systems as opposed to schedules, because Dave, I don't know if he's ever mentioned this, but like scheduling is the ideal. Of course, we just want to say, on Monday I do this and Tuesday I do this, but like we live in the post-class fractured mass, and our schedules are always changing and our energy is always changing, and that isn't necessarily realistic. There's an extent to which you still have to have things kind of routinely happening to keep your house clean or to have clean laundry, to have food on the table. But systems is something I want to think of kind of as it relates to household maintenance. So that's what I'm excited for.
Thanks, Anne. There's this wonderful part of Xenophon's Oikonomicus when Socrates is talking to his interlocutor, and now they want to like go into what is it to be a gentleman, and like what does that actually look like when you have your life together, and what's your actual household like? What's the domos in that case, right? What's the domos like? And Socrates kind of is like self belittling a little bit. He goes, well, I don't know, and you should ask my wife. She would know much more about this. Then he's like, but I can tell you what this other guy told me. I went to this other guy, you see, he's a real gentleman. And I asked him, what did you do, guy? And the guy was like, oh, wow, what a compliment. People think I'm a gentleman? No way. I had no idea. And then he's all like, well, you know, I had this conversation with my wife. I sat her down because I couldn't find something of mine that was missing. And I didn't want to make her feel bad. So I set it up as apologizing to her because I never had actually taken the time to show her where everything belongs. and then he has like this sort of conversation. And so it's like there's a dialogue inside of a dialogue inside of a dialogue, because Xenophon he's writing a dialogue, but then inside of that, it's obviously Socrates talking to somebody. And then inside of that conversation, Socrates is telling you that he talked to somebody else. Oh, and then there's another dialogue within that, because then it's that guy talking to his wife. And so it gets really, really, how many turtles go down in this one? Well, at least 4, I think we've designated. So, of course, there's the fun thing there of, is this Xenophon's opinion? Is this Socrates' opinion? Is this the gentleman's opinion? And so it's like there's a lot of room for plausible deniability where you can kind of be like, well, it's what one gentleman said to his wife. And so, it's kind of like this whole playful way of thinking about like, how are things organized? And so obviously this guy's rich and he has this mansion because, this is obviously part of the break between us and a lot of the things that we'll be reading in this bibliography, not having servants, right? So he's walking his wife around and he's like, okay, here's certain things that you can do to like get the servants to feel loyal to you and love you. But also look at this room. What does this room make you feel? Doesn't it make sense that this thing would belong in this room? And she's like, oh, yes, husband. That makes so much sense. I love you. And it's cute. And I'm just like, well, that's kind of going to actually inform how my wife and I actually talk about the design of the blueprints for our literal house. When we're drawing it all out, what makes sense? Thinking about how like so much of the crap that is not crap, it's actually really important stuff, doesn't seem to have a place. And we can set up all the bookshelves we like. It doesn't make it right for those things. It's like everything has a place. And that this is a true thing about us. And, the Xenophon's interlocutors, use examples of like think about when people are marching in an army, or think about when you see like ants all working together, like everything has a place, and it makes us feel good to see that everything has a place. I would then just add, there's a whole side of the internet where you can just watch things fitting into places where they perfectly belong. It's a kind of content that you can subscribe to. You can follow it. Just look up #satisfying. And it's just like, there's something in us that goes, yes, that fits perfect.
Chime in super quick, and just in thinking about the house and whether you're going to buy a new house or you're already living in a house or you're renting, like whatever it is, we've had this conversation before, but like kind of modern suburban households are not meant to be dwellings in this Illichian sense, like a place where you and your family get to like not just live and dwell, but instead everyone's thinking like, oh, the future market value versus like, I'm going to add this room that only makes sense to me. And that's partly because of like being in the post-class fractured mass where we're always moving or no one can afford a house. But like one thing even that like struck me recently that I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes way more sense. My sister lived in a tiny little apartment and her washer and dryer were in her closet. And I'm like, that's genius. Are you kidding me? Like having a separate laundry room that's oftentimes like on the other side of the house or next to the kitchen, like things like that where it's like, oh my gosh, put the washer and dryer literally in your closet. So the that's one less step. Just things like that I think modern suburban family homes are like built in this very cookie cutter way that doesn't have like actual real life taken into account. And it's just like little things like that you don't think about until you see it in a way that's way more functional, and you're like, it could literally be that easy. The clothes could come straight. They're already there. You just have to lift each one out of the dryer and put it where it belongs. Like, yeah, that was amazing to me.
Yes, it's amazing. Now I'm gonna close out in a minute, and I'll give anyone who has anything else that they wanted to add kind of to this birthday occasion about specifically about TU, an opportunity to do so still. But to close out the whole syllabus thing, I just wanted to say there is a whole schedule for like the year on there. You can check that out. And it's all concrete until the baby is more or less due. And then of course, like it's going to be like, that's the month that you focus in on what you're doing, right? And you know, you focus on your thesis, you focus on your presentation, you organize a book reading thing with someone else in the class, you know, so whatever. And then when I come back in July, you get to, you know, show me what you've got so far. And then I'll help you workshop it for a couple more months before submissions are due for the anthology that's going to be about nature, nurture, and natality. It's going to be about soul, soil, cycles, and systems. It's going to be about stewardship and home economics. It might just be called Domos. You know, that might already be taken, but we'll see. And this is not going to go away. This is going to be a part of things because I see it as like, as a secular kind of guy who's, you know, I've attended a lot of church this year, but none of it really gets me where I need to get got. I think I'm like looking for something and I'm not finding it just yet. And what I want is something that maybe churches should be offering it, but I think maybe there needs to be some other kind of civic institution that offers it, which is just like a place for people who want to live deliberately and who need to get centered and grounded on those things that matter in terms of their practical lives. But with that said, I did have to also clarify myself because I think some people are getting this idea that this was going to be like an anti-theory thing. If it's not, and if you look at the bibliography, there is a section on sort of critique of the world that we live in and the things that get in the way of all of this stuff. But also, it's going to be taught every month. There's also going to be an intro class. And I have here on the board Intro to Marx, Lacan, Žižek, Land, Illich, PMC, and the Idea of University, because those are all courses, 101 level courses, intro courses that have happened at Theory Underground over the last 3 years. We can also put, obviously, Intro to, and today was the last day of it, political philosophy on the one side, or theory, I should say, political theory, and philosophy of nature, right? So that's a lot of intro courses, and it's more intro courses than any other philosophy or theory adjacent org on the internet has. Everyone else wants to just like go straight to reading the mammoth work, the, you know, Žižek's Less Than Nothing or whatever. And I'm over here like, well, yeah, but what did I want when I was 28 or 32? Like I wanted just a bunch of intro courses that you actually can't find at your local college or university. Chances are you can't find them. And if you can find something along that topic, you're not going to find intro lectures. You're going to find what? Conversations where people are having conversations, assuming that everybody else has done the reading and has already done the intro course to be there in the first place. And you can kind of pull the ruse on those kinds of seminars by being like, okay, so where was the intro lecture that you took for this course? Just ask people. They're making it up, man. They're all acting like they did the intro course. And 3 months before I started Theory Underground, I was in this course for They Know Not What They Do, taught by some guy who's in the LAC circuit. And I asked him about a concept that, you know, he had been talking about, and that, you know, no one, you know, he wouldn't lecture. He would just kind of like reference concepts and talk. And he set the whole thing up as though it's going to be a radically flipped classroom where he'll everyone else does the thing. But instead, it's like, it's a little bit more like how it was here, where it's like he talks and then you say something and then he talks a long time and then you say something, then someone else says something and then he talks for a long time. And then the thing is, I own it. Like, that is what I do. He's acting like it's a flipped classroom, but it wasn't. It's in reality, he's still sitting there steering the ship, and using people's contributions just to kind of feed whatever he's on about. And I asked him point blank about a concept, and then he said that would be too intro level for the for this seminar. And it's too intro level to answer my question about OBJA. There's no intro course on OBJA, bro. That doesn't exist. You're not going to find it at GCAS. You're not going to find it at the New Center for Research and Practice. You're not going to find it at any of these places. They don't have the intro class, and it's not at your local university or college. It doesn't exist. So I was like, and then he literally kept talking for like the next 5 minutes about how complicated the stuff we are doing and how high level it is and how there's a certain level that people are expected to be at. It's not like a throwaway comment. He talked and talked and talked. And it's like, bro, you could have given me like a good enough, explanation in that amount of time, and then clarified that it's more complicated than you're able to do it justice, which is obviously necessary when you're talking about OJA, because you could do obviously like a whole 12-month course on OJA. But that was a big part of why Theory Underground has had so many intro courses with so many different amazing people. Now, with that said, I'm teaching an intro course next year, and it's called Intro to Theory. And in it, you'll get an intro to Marx, you'll get an intro to Lacan, you get an intro to Bourdieu, and it's literally intro level. And what I mean by that is that I do know for an absolute fact that some of the people who are listening to this have no background in theory, right? And so that's the idea there. The thing is I can't do that to myself or to other people without also teaching a course where we're touching grass or trying to make plans to go touch grass or build buildings or plant carrots. So that's the whole reason for this course, guys. It's not to be anti-theory. It's just to live a slightly more balanced, grounded life. Okay, now I want to listen to you all for at least a few minutes, and then I'll close out. I have to be done by 3:00 my time, which is, I think, 17 minutes. I'll, of course, be happy to keep talking, but I'm going to go ahead and just listen for a few minutes if anybody has anything they want to add.
Can I jump in? Can I jump in and say something? Is my audio coming through? Cool.
Totally.
So yeah, I guess I just wanted to offer some thoughts that this was coming together for me. You're thinking about like canon and different people's backgrounds. Had me thinking about a conversation that I actually heard Matthew Stanley for some podcasting. Sorry, I can't remember which it was, but you're talking about like premature introduction to existential philosophy, and I think you were talking about some Buddhist concepts and like non-dualism and stuff, and people that are introduced to those before they have the sort of mental infrastructure for them, it can be super destabilizing. And that kind of, it goes in actually with Benjamin's keynote talk at the TU retreat about the need for esotericism and being able to like understand the individual needs of the people that you're working with in order to help guide them, in order to give them the tools to develop themselves, and not just deconstruct and then have nothing to stand on after that. So I just that is one thing that I appreciate about Theory Underground, is it seems to offer potentially a means for this to happen, which doesn't really exist in a lot of other places that I've seen, like especially in an institution. It's not really set up for that sort of thing, because you've got a whole cohort of people coming through with whatever their background is. They're just going to kind of be fed through the thing. And it can be super alienating to people who don't have necessarily that, whether it's like they're just autodidactic by habit, or they just bounced off of previous, they have like trauma or whatever related to the system. And this sort of like for lack of a better word, care that you can give to the individual in terms of creating a better society en masse is, I think, is really needed and really valuable, and I appreciate that. So yeah, thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Drew. Yeah, it was really great to have you out there, by the way, for the retreat.
I see Anne baking this. I think it has to be said that at the retreat, Anne's cookies were pretty amazing. Still thinking about those cookies.
I'm
You
glad
went
I
and
could
made some of
contribute
those cookies.
something to the retreat, because I'm looking at all the pictures and I'm just like not in any of them because I was so sick that weekend.
Yeah, like the Tuesday before the retreat, Anne said that she might be okay and not have any serious problem from the pregnancy, and then she spent the next month every once in a while saying, "Oh my God, I feel okay today," but most of the time down under the weather. Yeah, shout out to Anne's cookies. Anybody else?
I just want to draw attention to Solosky's really good comment. How much does habitus define the blackness of a pill? I imagine some people finding lots of light. I suppose that casts shadows, though. I think that's the point that I feel like Dave and Anne were trying to make in the conversation about man children. You know, that's sort of the that was the sort of combative way of putting it. But I think that the blackness of a pill may be the effect that it has on you. Does it spur you into action, set you free, to be able to overflow in this Nietzschean sense? Or does the blackness of the pill come from the way that it allows you to stand still, the way that allows you to justify your own ongoing impotence or decision not to change? So I think that some of the blackness of the pill, though, comes from just setting you down a bad path too. I mean, there are just worse paths where you will destroy yourself too. Sometimes those are necessary. Some things have to be broken down, but I totally think that it's about the effect of the pill is the forces at work within the body which receives the pill, because that's what the pill will interact with, and it will elicit some sort of a response from the system. What response it elicits is what will determine whether that pill was well administered or not.
You could be like a theory pharmacist. I'm here to get your subscription to your pills. I just wanted to check in, make sure, that this is it's going okay. Oh, you need to touch some grass. We overdid it with the with the with the Nietzsche this time, or whatever. Yeah. um yeah, man, like people will go so deep into the psychoanalysis stuff that they don't think that there is anything that one can meaningfully say about their lives, or like at the conscious level. That the unconscious is the one driving the show. You are a subject of drive, and any attempt to take the steering wheel back from drive is just going to create cataclysmic backlash or problems down the line, and that you really just need to learn to go with the flow of your drive. And it's like the first time I talked to Žižek, the question was, okay, but what if you're a serial killer? Like, what if it's just like people think of gambling and road rage or cheating on their partner. It's like, yeah, but what if you're a serial killer? You just go with the flow of your drive and come to terms with it. Like, I'm not seeing how this works. This sounds like you're setting people up who are in suicidal loops for really bad. And by the way, obviously cheating on your partner would be a suicidal loop. It pales in comparison to serial murdering, was why I used it as an example. But when we're talking about death drive, and people of not privilege, people of poverty, buying into these big ideas from psychoanalysis that was something for dealing with a bourgeois kind of subject laying on the couch. It's like there's a weird way that something that was meant to have a certain kind of theurgic effect in the clinic is now being transplanted into the wild, in the underground, and it becomes like this noxious, self-defeating weed, right? But with all that said, I still love me some Lacan. But anyway, all right, I'm gonna close it out though. Everybody, thanks. This has been amazing. I have 5 minutes here to say the part that kind of pulls it all together. I have done 80% of the work of the Super Secret Project. It's the 80% that was the most difficult. The main reason I have had to keep it a secret is because I found out that I am able to do a lot when I am not needing to make myself intelligible to other people. I'm able to do a lot when people just kind of egg me on and are in my corner and saying, do it, go, do it, go, go, go. And this year, I said at the beginning of the lecture that this was the most stressful year in a sort of sense, because when you're trying to work with a lot of people, there's a lot of other stuff that comes into play, right? A person will say one thing and then you remember it a different way, right? And then they remember it a different way. And it's like there's that. And then there's the telephone game of now there's a whole bunch of people involved. And then everybody's talking to everybody, but nobody remembers who they said it to or when they said it. And of course, like for me, as the sort of locus of it all, it's like I think I told everybody everything all the time, but in reality, it's like, no, I just said that to the one person. Other people have been left in the dark. And so I'm trying to get, part of this year was like trying to get better and more orchestrated about things and trying to have regular meetings and loop people in and get them on the wavelength. And then also a couple of times it came to the fore that people who we were literally scheduling the whole year around trying to make it so that we were pacing ourselves so that they could attend everything, just weren't going to do that. They weren't actually going to attend it, even though I was holding myself back and slowing myself down to try to make it so that people could kind of do it. And that was one of the big realizations, is that there are people who really want to do something, and then there are people who are doing the thing. And then if you slow it down for the people who are doing the thing, because, theoretically, the people who want you to slow down so that they can catch up can get on board, then you end up like alienating the people who are going hard in the first place. And so like there's this weird thing where it's like, man, like and so I was going harder than ever, but I was also holding myself back in all these different ways, from on the one side trying to space out the stuff that I want to do so that other people could catch up with it, and on the other side actually trying to make myself intelligible, which meant I was doing way less lecturing and way less seminaring on the one side and way more bureaucratic kinds of meetings on the other side. And so it's like the exact opposite of everything I love and that kind of makes me tick. And it was extremely stressful. And so this last 160 days of sort of not really feeling accountable, of going through what I would describe as a degrowth phase of both the channel and of the membership, has been sobering and rewarding at the same time, because obviously I've there was a time, some of you might know, in 2020 when I said goodbye to all of my patrons and I closed down my Patreon and I said, I'm not going to be an influencer. I'm not going to do this left influencer thing. And losing my source of income so that I had to go work at an Amazon warehouse was the most freeing thing I did at that time. And it's because I felt the pull of audience capture. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to play that game. And whenever I feel like I'm on the way to selling out, the reason that I'm here, you better bet I'm willing to watch the whole thing crash and burn if necessary. It's like I've got, it's like I've got the gun to its head and I'm like, back away, everybody, back away. Don't make me do it. And it kind of it feels like that when you're not publishing frequently, when you're not doing a lot of episodes, for instance. In terms of being a very productive procrastinator, having multiple podcast hosts with whom I was doing nothing was actually a tremendous motivator. It's like seeing the metrics go down on the subscriptions and on the channel is a motivator. It just means what I'm doing better be worth it, and that I'm all in. And I'm sort of willing to see what the sort of filtering process is able to do. I'm willing to see who remains at the end of the purge of the people who are here for shiny objects, the purge of the people who are here for like this little aspect or that little aspect. Oh, they want a course on this one sexy philosopher or theorist, but they don't really care about the overarching idea and all of that. Well, I don't expect them to care, and I don't want to resent that, but I do not like when I'm having to explain myself to too many people who all want something that's not even like the real point of the operation. And that's where it makes me go back to where I was at the end of 2022 when I was planning out the course year for 2023 and kicking this thing off. And I said, no, we're not doing a sexy course. We're not doing a course on Žižek until months later. We're going to do a course on Carl Jasper's idea of university. There's nothing in the world more boring than that. But it's exciting to me. And if that's boring to you, there's other things I'm sure you could go find on the internet. But I'm going to double down on like what I think is important and what I think matters. And it's not something I'm going to stop doing. And I think that kind of authenticity, even though it's impossible on the internet, it'll come through anyway, because I can't live with it otherwise, right? And so, there is always the side of like, well, what does the profile tell you? What's the profilicity of Theory Underground? And of course, we have to think about these things, but also what are we actually doing and why? Why do I do what I do? And those kinds of questions, getting grounded in those as I prepare to write this book, which I will have written by the time I'm doing stuff here again in January. Getting centered on these kinds of practical activities that are always already deeply theoretical. That's what I'm excited to be doing right now. And the only reason that I decided against showing you guys about the super secret project today was because of the time constraint, not because I'm not ready to show each and every one of you. We're officially there. I am excited to show you guys. And if I had another hour at least, then we would do it for sure. So just know that you're going to be one of the people who's the first to know. And the promise that I keep making, Ruiz and Alex, I don't know if you guys can testify to this or not. Anne, I don't know if you can testify to this or not, but the promise that I am making is that if it works, it will make a new symbolic position possible where you can do this stuff full time without being an influencer or a professor. And it'll make it fun, and it'll be something you can do with people who aren't already into the liberal arts, and it will make more people want to get into the liberal arts, and it will raise the general level of canon literacy, if not in the country and world, then at least for the people in your circles. And that will help you on your path, obviously, towards some kind of relative residential canon mastery.
I believe in it. Yes, sir.
Same here.
Sweet. Yeah, it's going to be fun, guys. All right. Love you all. Have a good one. Thank you for being here. This has been awesome. And smile for the picture. I'm going to take a picture in the count of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Hold on. Let me change the side that this screen is on. And then I'll start back from the top, because I got to do like a screenshot is what I'm going to do. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Based. We got it, guys. Hey, that's a great smile. Look at all these people. Oh my God. All right, everybody. Thanks.
Happy birthday, Dave. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Free underground.
Happy birthday.
So yeah, happy birthday, man.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you. Peace.
Happy birthday.
Have a good one.